Thank you so much, Mr. Mpondera. I think up next we have Dr. Wright, Dr. Terrin Wright, who's just joined the call for the Pan-African Organizing online class. So I think maybe for any, maybe for any questions that we might not have gone through, we can probably follow up with those over email. That is info@iloveblackpeople.com, or maybe next week when Mr. Mpondera joins us again.
Right. Yeah. Any additional questions? Yes, I'll definitely respond to them next week. Okay. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you find this to be helpful.
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Bye.
All right. So up next, we have Dr. Terrin Wright, who's going to be leading the lecture on the Pan-African Organizing online class. This will actually be the first lecture in this cohort. Dr. Wright, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hold on.
Right, great to have you on.
Let me see if you can see me in a second. Hold on 1 second. I'm having to use my device this time. Yes, I can hear you. Will I be able to, well, I should be able to, I think, share my screen, right, at some point.
Yes.
Okay. How are you all this morning? Afternoon and evening in some places. Hello, everyone. I don't know if you can see me. Okay. So, welcome to the Pan-African History and Organizing course. Basically, this is the ideological development course for, good morning, or good afternoon, actually, in some parts of the world, in evening, actually. This is the ideological development and training course for I Love Black People, where you will learn a healthy amount of Pan-African history, not just from individual perspective, but from organizational perspective, which prepares you for the work that you're doing with I Love Black People as ambassadors. So I'm going to be sharing the syllabus momentarily. I apologize because I rearranged the dates and then I actually got one wrong. So I'm about to repost that, not repost it, but post it because those changes were made. I'm going to read a little bit to you about what the course is in terms of a description and the expectations. So I teach this course really as a seminar more than anything else. And what a seminar is usually a course on the graduate level of the academic scale. So in other words, it's not like an undergraduate course, you know, a course you would take your first couple of years in the university, but a course that you would take in a more advanced way, which is consists of readings, some deep and intensive reading, but then discourse. So really a large part of the class will be our dialogue and discourse in these sessions where we're able to process the information and delve into the information. The whole course is structured around thought and practice. Good evening. Everyone is still saying good evening, good evening. It's structured around theory, thought, and practice. So whether it's us looking at the individual proponents of Pan-Africanism, like Kwame Nkrumah or Patrice Lumumba, and or looking at organizational expressions of Pan-Africanism, like the Organization of African Unity, which came through the Pan-African Congresses established by Du Bois. So that's the structure of the course. We look at the theory, the theoretical line, the thinking, and we then assess and qualify the action or the behavior or the organizational behavior that was coupled with that thought, right? So the ability to carry out a particular agenda. This course, like I said, is part of the ideological development where you all as ambassadors are being essentially trained to think in terms of your commitment and your objectives in working for I Love Black people, and then coupled with action. How does that play out on the ground in light of the organizational objectives, which for this organization is to eradicate racism and xenophobia? How does that manifest on the ground? And I think this is really an important course because it is where the rubber meets the road, in the sense that the objective for this organization and for the work that you all are doing specifically is to get out there and fulfill the objectives of the organization through technology, right? So how are we going to achieve the objectives using technology to eradicate racism and xenophobia? So throughout the course, you will hear me remind you about the objectives and how literally what you are learning applies to that. So that is present. I'm just going to briefly read the introduction or course description to you, and that will go into, I know not everyone is in the WhatsApp group. I see many of you, welcome, of course, but then there's people who are watching this who are not in the WhatsApp course. And so therefore this reading is for all of you, but particularly for those of you who won't be able to follow along with the document, in which you're receiving a revised version of it. So the course description is such: an introduction to Pan-African history and organizing is a survey of the development and history of Pan-Africanism, the concept and practice. The course is structured to examine and engage in a critical analysis of the theories and practices of Pan-Africanism as both a political and ideological impetus for organizing African people globally. The course begins with the historical foundations of Pan-Africanism at the turn of the 20th century as a budding concept in the African diaspora in the Americas. It becomes the impetus for international organizing in Europe, the first Pan-African Conference, 1900, and finds its highest expression in Africa as a liberation struggle for the total independence of the African continent. Many question the measurable results produced by Pan-Africanism. This course explores this idea and qualifies the practices and production of Pan-Africanism and the measurable gains for African people, Black people globally by examining policy cases, conference resolutions, and the implementation of ideology as African nationalists and the masses of the people on the ground express it. So that is essentially the course description. There's not a heavy writing or intensive writing aspect to the course. The course is, once again, in seminar format. So you are, how I decided to design it in every semester or every cycle that I have taught this. This is number 5 or 6. I've added or revised certain things. This time around, what will happen is that you will give me information in terms of questions, in terms of the objectives of the course and your understanding of the readings. So that'll be clear, a little more clear in the syllabus. And but there is no mass written assignment in the sense outside of that, in the sense that you would do in a traditional face-to-face type of course, right? So I wanted to answer that off the top. Also, one of the texts that we'll be using, you'll see all the sources on the syllabus, but one of the texts we will be using will be a book that I authored, which is Booker T. Washington in Africa, The Making of a Pan-Africanist. And we're only going to use a couple of chapters from there, one of them being the chapter where the Pan-African world is recreated. So to give us historical context as to how Pan-Africanism came about as a thought, as a practice, as a movement, as an ideology. And so I will be using that. That's actually your first reading. In the midst of this, I actually am going to put that up there. So the first couple of chapters that we read, text will be provided from that book. However, all of the materials for the course are provided by me in PDF form and posted in the I Love Black People WhatsApp group. Okay, so everyone knows that what we're reading. It's typically sent out. We meet on Saturday. Typically, those readings will go out on Monday evening, and we have, Monday to Friday to read them. Some materials are more dense than others, but the materials are always provided via WhatsApp in PDF form, already scanned. What I would suggest for this course is that you compile your information and you compile it so that at the end of the seminar, you will have a comprehensive account of the materials covered in this course and be able to reference them. Okay, I think the ideological development aspect of your participation in I Love Black People is very important. Ideology shapes, what we do. And one of the things that I'm going to stress is the fact that if we develop ourselves, our thinking, then we can move with conscious action and deliberate action. And so I get very deep into that in terms of looking at how this model of ideological development is done all over the African continent and even in the diaspora as we struggle for liberation. And specifically, on the African continent, right? In terms of the independence of various African nations. So you will see that throughout the course, that line. The sessions will generally be structured in this format, lecture format. I will share my screen And I've tried to move away from just lecturing. Sometimes I use visuals, so you will see me share my screen where I will use a visual, like a video, to support our learning. And then I will lecture a little bit, and then I will go to Q&A. So the course sessions are about an hour, and I want to stay on time. We were close to on time today, not quite, but close to it. And I will come on at 10:45 when your community call is ending, and then we will proceed with the class, and I will expect to end somewhere around 11:30, 11:25, 11:30, with the presentation of the materials. That presentation will be as a result of the readings that you just completed, right, the week before. So Monday to Friday, you're reading. Saturday is the lecture and presentation of the lecture and its related materials. And at about 11:25, 11:30, I would expect to engage in Q&A and have some level of discourse around the course materials for that week. Okay. That is the extent of it. I did want to share the first readings, but I'm going to see if I have permission to share the screen momentarily. While I do that, while I get permission to do that, I would like to see if anyone had any questions early. I don't plan to take up the entire session this time, my entire hour, as it is just an introduction to myself and the materials. And I want to, resend some materials on the technical end. So, and give you maybe a moment's visual of what you're going to be reading this week. So I'm going to go to the chat momentarily to see if there are any questions about that. Yes. Oh, okay. You're telling me, Alex. Okay. Yes. So the session is about 6 weeks. There's no, I don't know if you all can hear my cats, but okay. They want to be a part of the session as well. No questions? Any questions? Okay, that's good. Great. People are expressing their desire to join this seminar. Sorry. I don't know if you guys saw that. That was literally the cat jump on the desk. Okay. One moment. Okay, sorry, you all. I have kittens and they interrupted. So we're going to settle that. But if there are no questions, so there is a general certification For the course, you get a certification for both. I believe the health course and the Pan-African course. So a certificate of completion for the course. I don't know if, so I don't know if that's combined. The admin, Alex, probably could tell you even better, but the admin persons would be able to tell you better how the certificates are going to label or document your completion of the course. So I
hello?
think that's, yes.
Yes, I just wanted to add to that, like Dr. Taryn said, the course runs for roughly 6 weeks. Then after that, after the first 6 weeks, everyone who participated on the course will be issued with a certificate of participation for the Pan-African Organizing online class. Then right after that, we have Nana Akua, who's going to be running a Pan-African healthcare class for another 6 weeks or so. So then after the additional 6 weeks, all participants again will be issued with the certificate of participation for that course.
Right. Alex, so my question is it 2 separate certificates?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
It's 2 separate certificates.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you. That's what I wanted to know as well. All right, so there's your answer. Okay, so I'm reading your comments. Okay, so yeah, I think that answers the question. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of questions yet, but let me, I'm just going to, you're not going to see me for 1 second, and I'm going to just share your initial readings, and which you'll be going into, well, actually, I'll be sharing it from the WhatsApp group. So if you all will give me 1 moment, and then you'll see me again along with the documents. As I said, and what I'm about to show you is just the first chapter that you're going to be reading for this week, which is Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanists. Now, let me just say this, preface that with the only reason I am using a text that I wrote initially is because of the fact that I can ensure that it covers the initial history of Pan-Africanism. And I didn't have to question whether or not some critical points about how cohesive the first gathering of this kind was, by having to worry whether or not so-and-so covered so-and-so, and then I had to, supplement that. So the chapter you will be reading from the book that I wrote is Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanists. And it covers the African world from Haiti to Europe, from the United States to on the continent, all the contributions to this formation of this idea of Pan-Africanism, which in this chapter, I posit that a working definition for Pan-Africanism is the unification of African and Black people for the purpose of eradicating oppression. And that's a very basic, simple concept I will discuss in the same chapter. The other emerging concepts that become attached to Pan-Africanism, the definitions that come about that are attached to Pan-Africanism, that people like Marcus Garvey, Du Bois, and even Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah will assert himself. So I will get into comprehensive definitions of Pan-Africanism, but for the purpose of this organization, we stick to a bare bones definition, which is really that our very purpose of coming together is to eradicate oppression and exploitation of Black people, of African people everywhere. And so that is our impetus for the work we do, and for, of course, a course like this. It develops us in order to do that work so that we can understand that we are, in fact, on a continuum and in a tradition of struggle where we work to liberate ourselves. Okay, so if I can momentarily share my screen. I'm going to take myself off, but I'm going to come back with my screen shared. So one moment. And you can write comments in the questions if you desire to do so while we're doing this, while I'm, doing, getting the visual together. Okay. Okay. Also, I wanted to just let people know that much of the readings, all of the readings will be provided by myself. However, they are, they're not dense, but don't be intimidated by how much I put in the WhatsApp group in terms of the readings, because very often, as you will see today, I will actually share more than is sort of necessary in advance. So in other words, I will be posting the readings in advance in most cases. So while Monday is the expected date for materials to go up, generally you will get possibly 2 weeks in advance. Okay. So I am actually back, and if it's possible, Alex, did you already send me? Okay, perfect. Alex is already ready for me to share my screen. So this is the first material, or this first chapter that we will actually read together. This is from a book called Booker T. Washington in Africa, The Making of a Pan-Africanist. And I just want to highlight the quote at the beginning of the chapter to frame really what our very first reading is all about, which is an understanding of the concept of Pan-Africanism. And so it says, this is a quote from Booker T. Washington himself. And yes, this is a little off the beaten path in the sense that Booker T. Washington is not viewed as one of the premier Pan-Africanists of his time. Okay. And we get into that just a little bit, but to engage this issue of Washington being added to or accepted in the canon of Pan-Africanists, we have to deal with his practices, his behavior. What did he do that would make him be added to the canon of Pan-Africanists? Well, it is in fact his action. It would not be his public rhetoric or anything alike. It would be his activity. And that for that reason, this is why he is a discussion in here, because he clandestinely made major contributions to policies that impact African people in particular. And so this is why we study his action and use it in this context. But also this chapter basically recreates the history. I take you back in time so that you can understand what was happening in the years leading up to 1900 and at 1900 when the first Pan-African conference is actually held in London, and it is attended by various African nationalists and African people, Black people from around the world. So this piece right here helps you understand that. It is easy reading. It is in, it's academic format, but it is in lay language. So it is meant to be consumed by you all very easily. Okay. So Washington, I took this quote from another book called The Story of the Negro, The Rise of Race from Slavery. And I'm not going to delve into this whole chapter, but I want to frame this conversation as you go into the reading this week with this quote. And so that's why it's there at the beginning of the chapter. And it says, "There is, however, a tie which few white men can understand, which binds the American Negro to the African Negro, which unites the Black man of Brazil and the Black man of Liberia, which is constantly drawing into closer relations all the scattered African peoples, whether they are in the old world or the new. I have rarely met in America anyone of my race who did not in one way or another show a deep interest in everything connected with Africa. The millions of Negroes in America are almost as much interested, for example, in the future of Liberia and Abyssinia is Ethiopia, as they are in their own country. There is always a peculiar and scarcely definable bond that binds one Black man to another Black man, that binds one Black man to another Black man, and I should say woman too, whether in Africa, Jamaica, Haiti, or the United States." So in other words, we are connected by our collective struggle around the world to eradicate racism and xenophobia, which of another term for that, or another way to say that, is exploitation and oppression. Okay, so I'm going to keep it light this session. I don't want to bombard you all. And I think it's 11:20. So I'm going to, if there are any questions, I'll take those questions. I'll be posting this stuff simultaneously in our WhatsApp. This reading will also go up with another chapter. And I'm going to let our next lecturer, which is Nana Akua, who is leading the health and wellness course, holistic, I believe it's holistic health and wellness for I Love Black People. So she will be leading that, and I will make sure I do not take any of her time. So if there are any questions, I will take those right now. Okay, so some of these are admin questions. And just keep in mind that the lecture is the first half, so that is good because it gives you perspective on the readings. The second half of the hour, or at least the 1/3 of the hour, is Q&A. So really how I have it set up is that in that hour, I will try to do about 20 minutes of visual, 20 minutes of lecture, a little over 20 minutes. Well, 20 minutes of lecture, a third of each, right? So about 20 minutes of lecture, 20 minutes of visual. So you can have something that engages you visually, since we are not able to be in the same place. We're all over the world in this session. And then, about 20 minutes in dialogue. And part of what I've changed on this cycle of the course is that everyone will be required to pose a series of questions as a response to the reading, so that we know that you are in fact reading and engaging. So instead of me testing you, because first of all, even if this was in the academic context, testing does not determine anything per se, right? It does not determine cognition, meaning learning. But even more so, the objective is to make sure that there's an understanding. And when you know what to ask, for me, that gives some indication that there has been an digestion or a grappling and engaging with the material. So you'll see that on the syllabus. You have the first readings. Well, you'll have, some of you are not in the WhatsApp group, so I'll make all of that visible in a couple of moments. And what else? And, that's pretty much it. So that's how the course in that 1 hour will be structured, pretty much 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. Okay. And that is the content in terms of what I just showed. That is the content for this week. The chapter on Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanists, which take us back in time to that moment. Okay, so I don't see a lot of questions. I'm ahead of time, which that's great, 11:25. So this would be the time in the traditional context. Sure. Let me see. I can put the information about the book in here. And actually, I could show you. There is a website for the book. Who's that talking to me? Oh, okay, you already did it, Alex. All right. Right. So the first couple of chapters I'm providing you from the book. Thank you, Alex. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. He's so on top of it. I'm going to share my screen for you all, if you don't mind. I just opened up the book website. You are not, some of you in the diaspora might be interested in purchasing this book. That's fine. I'm not requiring a purchase of this book for the course. I have already scanned the chapters and make them available to you at no cost or anything like that. So that's not an issue. For those of you who just want to be a little more familiar with the book and the website for the book, I'm going to share the screen because Alex just shared the link. So I will do that. But so this is the website for the book and Booker T. Washington in Africa. Looks a little, oh, okay. I don't typically go to it on a device. It's usually on a computer, but it gives you some understanding. That is a Librarian Commission, which is one of the cases we'll discuss in the context of this course. But essentially Washington's role in the Congo Free State, the African Exclusion Measure. These are some of the policy cases that are going to be engaged in the context of this course in terms of action, right? In terms of action, in terms of actionable and measurable in terms of practice, in terms of practice and measurable practice that we can look at that is indicative of Pan-Africanism. So this is the book website. The third page, I think if you go to the third page, you'll see the purchase information for those who are interested in that. But we're not, if you're international, I wouldn't do that just yet. I would wait for the digital version to come out, which there is one, but I have not requested that it's released. So it's not released just yet. But this is, this gives you a lot of information. Some people have said, oh, the website of the book gives too much information. So this is one of the cases we'll be talking about, the Librarian crisis. And then, Washington's participation in propagandizing against the the Congo Free State. And then this case is certainly in our course of study, the African Exclusion Measure. Okay, so just to give you a brief understanding of what we cover, but our focus for week 1, even though Washington, just look at him as a case study of someone who, in a very documentable way, we can see what he was doing. And no, he's not known for this. This is some of my primary and original research that I've done over the years that I've put in the public realm, not necessarily into the academic realm. It's an imprint of it there too, but that wasn't my objective. This was for us, people who are laypersons and needed to have access to the activity of African people who were working to benefit African people collectively. So, somebody is sharing something else. Okay, I don't know what that is, but that's not my screen. What is that?
I'm sorry, Yvonne, can you see that?
I see that, but that's not my screen. Did you guys see the website that I was showing you all?
No, I don't think your screen wasn't shared.
That's weird. Whose screen was that?
Yeah, I think it looks like somebody else reshared their screen.
Oh, okay. So let me share mine again. So
all right.
That was weird. Okay, so I'm going to share. Well, did you all see the chapter of Booker T. Washington in Africa when I shared that? No? Alex?
No.
Alex? Oh, so you didn't even see the chapter when I shared my screen before?
No.
Okay, that's interesting. All right, so I'll do that.
I can see your screen right now.
Okay, something went wrong. I share my screen every day, but something's going on with Zoom, and that wasn't my screen just now at all. But okay, so this is the book website. You are not, let me just say it again, for those of you who are not in the United States or anywhere close, you're not required to buy this book. Even those of you in the United States, you're not required to buy this book. I'm just briefly giving you some understanding of the first text that we are using. So this is the book's website. You can see that now, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the Librarian crisis we do discuss in the context of this course, because we're only looking at things where we can study the thought pattern, the ideology, and the actual practice. Because I want in this course for us all to come out of it understanding that Pan-Africanism is not some esoteric, emotional, intangible concept, but a concrete concept and practice that produce results for African people globally. So that's really more where we're going. We're not here to, in a non-material way, discuss Pan-Africanism. In other words, it's not just about feeling good and, you know, I have love for my brothers and sisters, although this is called I Love Black People. It's not just as simple as that. We are here to develop ourselves ideologically to love our people, to love Black people through practice, through action. So that is the objective. And so we study people, individual people, and then organizations that have loved our people through action and practice. That is the complete objective of what we're doing here, okay? And that action and those practices are on a continuum. They are continuous and they have become a tradition. So that is what we're doing here, not to just have a party about, you know, some folks from the past. There's a very clear objective with our course of study in this seminar. Okay, so this is the website, but this is covers some of the cases we'll look at. Librarian crisis, some of Washington's propagandizing against the atrocities in the Congo. Then, of course, this last case, the African exclusion measure, which are the Librarian crisis and the African exclusion measure are concrete policy cases that were acted on by Washington, Booker T. Washington. And so the only reason why we look at him is because of these cases, really, and what they produced, right? Which were measurable results for us. If you wanted to read, you know, just some of the information about the book, you can go here about the book. It gives you an image of the Librarian crisis, the commission to the United States during the Librarian crisis, which is actually in Tuskegee. And that those are Liberian officials in a garden at Tuskegee. And they are here for the purpose of negotiating in the midst of the crisis to get some level of support. And Washington is the key negotiator. And it's very interesting how he navigates that. So we study that. But then it gives you a description of the book in general, and then gives you a description of each of the cases and scenarios that are included in the book, right? So that's what that is. Okay. I'm also, since you all did not see the chapter that you're going to be reading, everybody will have that, but I'll go back to it for a moment. This is it right here. You will be reading this chapter, and it opened up with the quote that I read, but now you get to see it. So all the material is there. And you will be able to read, you know, whatever chapter I have assigned. In this case, it's called Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanist. It is 10 pages, well, 25 pages. However, some of those are images at the end. And some of those are images at the end. And it is easy reading. So you will roll right. It's just like talking. So it will roll right through them. They're not hard, impersonal academic language. There's not hard and impersonal academic language being used here. So, and what I mean by hard, I mean cold, not hard in terms of challenging. I'm sure you guys can, get definition for anything. But this was the quote that I used, which essentially talks about the collective plight of African people around the world, right? So this is, I don't know what I just did. I clicked on something and now it wants me to color it. Okay. So that is what I read, right? And you have this, and you will have another chapter in addition to this for your reading. So it's 2 chapters this first week. Next week, it'll be 2 more chapters. Then we start to go into other proponents and simultaneously cover the history. We look at a lot of conference resolutions. And the last thing I'm going to say is we look at a lot of historical documents that most might not have access to. So please make sure that, if you have the capability to download this material to keep it, I definitely, I have academic, access in some for my because my professional capacity, but the documents otherwise would cost money. So, resolutions from various conferences, historic conferences. So please do keep them. They're historical, they're valuable, and it's a good frame of reference for you. So now I've taken up that time that I thought that made us early. I'm going to stop the share. I realized that I didn't tell you anything about myself. The book website is in the link. Alex is taking care of that. If you scroll up, if you're in the chat, then you can see it and go to that website. Please don't order the book internationally because it costs a lot of money to do so. And, there is a little mission with this book in the sense that we don't want to price anyone out. So I will be making quite a bit of the book available here. Okay. So thank you. You were all trying to tell me my screen is not being shared. So thank you. Now I see that. Okay. So no worries about readings. You will always have them in advance. The lecture's not every day. The lecture's only on Saturdays, and you're reading from Monday through Friday. The book can be bought on the website. Unless you're in the United States, I wouldn't buy it. I make a large amount of it available in the WhatsApp group to those of you who are international participants in this seminar. Let me I always have a challenge talking about myself in these sessions. I always jump right into the work aspect of it. And so just to let you know a little bit about me, I am a professor. I teach for the City University of New York. I teach typically history and political science in Africana. But I also, I love Black people, I believe I don't know, am I the resident scholar or I'm the scholar in residence? And I've been working with I Love Black people for a couple of years, but in terms of us doing this Pan-African seminar, Pan-African history and organizing seminar. This is actually our second year. This is around the anniversary of the first time we did this course, this seminar. So you guys are in like cohort 5, but it's really about 6 of them we've done thus far. I am a proud Tuskegee alumni. And I am, let me see, I'm a Tuskegee alumni, meaning I'm a graduate of Tuskegee University, and I was a student of history there. I am also, I got my master's in the City University of New York, where I'm originally from, in modern African history. So essentially the political history of Africa and its independence struggles. And I studied the necessity of armed struggle in settler colonies in Africa. And so just the differences in how Africa comes into its independence. What else? So that is the subject matter under which I got my master's. And then I went on to get my PhD in public policy and social issues, where I studied cases that were specific to Africa. So policy is in the realm of political science. So I theorize first as a historian and second as a political scientist studying the politics of human beings. But my particular niche is the impact of policy on African populations. You can see how it's consistent with the work that is in the chapters you'll be reading, because I'm studying how the going-ons at that historical moment in time develop into policy that impacts African people, us. And so that book, Booker T. Washington in Africa, was my first book. I'm writing 2 others right now, one of which actually kind of deals with some of what we're doing here. I've actually produced in New York on WBAI regular radio, which, on shows that relate to the impact of the African world. I'm returning to the airwaves in New York to take sort of my activism and scholarship to another generation of that audience and talk about global Africa, the global African condition. So I think that's a little bit about me. And I think that that's right there at 11:44. So I'm going to leave it there. Okay. And I don't see any new questions. So I think that's it. So a little bit about me. And I think that it's time for Nana Akua to come on by and do her session with you in holistic health and wellness. Right? I think that's what.
Yes, I am, Dr. Wright. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you. All You're right. Welcome. Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I am pleased to now take my turn. I'm glad to have you all with me today. So this is our new cycle of Pan-African healthcare. I'm Nana Akua Zanzele. I am a traditional healer, traditionally or originally trained as a naturopath. I do not practice in that regard anymore. And so I now teach through my ministry. And I love educating people on how to stay healthy and heal themselves, empower themselves by knowing about their bodies and their health and how to prevent dis-ease or discomfort or anything that brings us out of balance. And so I have just maybe some 20, 30 minutes ago, sent the syllabus and some handouts. So I realize you may have been on with Dr. Wright and not been able to receive those. So feel free to just sort of listen in, and I'll be sure to cover what is in the handouts in a timely manner. And then always you are able to go and refer back. We will not go through everything that is listed in all of the handouts, but I more so wanted you to have the information and really be able to refer back to it. It's pretty much a collection of handouts that I have collected over the years that I used to give to clients and that I now just sometimes use as teaching tools. We pretty much will just give information on these different topics. I will try to keep up with comments as we go along, but usually somewhere in the middle, I'll kind of take a break and make sure I can answer your questions. So feel free to jot any questions that you have down or go ahead and put them in the chat. And if I don't get to them right away, then I will get to them when I take that break to kind of review our comments. I love it when your camera is on. Let me just say that. And I often will kind of scroll through. I don't see everybody on the screen at one time, but I love to see faces. I'm sort of a hands-on kind of in your face type of person. And of course, COVID doesn't allow us to do that. And of course, geography doesn't allow us to do it, but this gives us the platform, right, to at least be able to communicate with people throughout the world. It still just kind of takes away from the kind of person-to-person reaction that or interaction that I'm used to. So bear with me. So if you can, I understand you may be doing other things and it may not be appropriate to cut your screen on, but if you can, indulge me. I appreciate it, right? So healthcare, you know, healthcare for the Pan-African, healthcare for Black people, for Africans throughout the world, throughout the diaspora, on the continent. This class is about simply educating our people about traditional uses of herbs and other naturally occurring substances, how to heal ourselves, mind, body, and spirit, how to heal our families, our communities. It's strictly about that. I want to arm you with the knowledge of keeping your body in top or optimal condition so that we can do all that we have to do in this world to fight off racism and xenophobia. So it's all relative, all relevant, and all related to the topic. So in one regard, it may seem like we're kind of doing two different things, but it's all one and the same, because a soldier can't fight if he's unwell and sick. Sister Yvonne, if you can allow me to share the screen, I would appreciate that. I would like to.
Yes, you should be able to share.
There. Oh, is it not Yvonne?
Yvonne is on as well.
Oh, it's Alex. Hi, Alex.
Yeah, this is Alex.
Okay,
Hi.
so it's sharing, right?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So if you haven't yet seen it in your WhatsApp as an attachment, then this is just simply the syllabus that we will be learning from this session. I've listed some materials here that you can refer to. It's not necessary, but I always like to give sort of some additional information that you can refer to. But as I previously stated, I've made it a point to kind of collect different handouts and materials that you will have as a reference if these books or others on the topic are not available to you. Okay, but we'll talk about herbs, we'll talk about homeopathic remedies, we'll talk about vitamins, we'll talk about essential oils, any and everything natural or holistic that will help one maintain or regain health. Okay, we'll talk about how to boost the immune system. We'll talk about what one should have in their natural medicine chest. And we'll talk about what these different natural healing remedies or modalities will do in regards to treating common health concerns or health complaints. We'll even talk about how to use herbs, whether in teas or tinctures or in baths or aromatherapy or of course, internally for medicine. So we will scroll down here. And so for this week, we are sort of giving that introduction of what holistic healing is. A lot of times we're only familiar with health as it relates to what we would call allopathic medicine. And that is traditionally what your medical doctor is teaching from. And of course, we know that in certain situations, especially in emergency situations or really chronic or acute conditions, we know that we would look to that type of practitioner for assistance. But there are so many other issues far and few between that may be able to be addressed on your own or with other types of healers. And so the focus on holistic healing is not just focusing on symptoms, which is what by and large allopathic medicine focuses on. You go into the emergency room or you go into a doctor's office and you say, well, this is paining me, or I'm having this issue, or this is the problem. And all of these are the symptoms. These are complaints that are being exhibited. And of course, they will find or try to find why that's happening. But sometimes it will just simply be, oh, okay, well, we don't know why, or just use this or take this in order to alleviate those symptoms. The goal of holistic healing or holistic medicine is, I shouldn't even say medicine, let's say holistic healing. I'd like to use the term healing because no one has total authority over healing, right? And so, so as to not interfere with claiming to be a medical professional or to cure or to treat a particular condition, let's use the general term healing. But we know that there are things that can sometimes be done that doesn't necessarily have a direct impact on health, but can indirectly make the person more well and more equipped to fight off certain conditions. So holistic healing deals with making sure that the mind, the body, and the spirit are all in balance and is in optimal shape to fight off any environmental toxins, any poor dietary habits, or any emotional upset, or any spiritual attacks or spiritual imbalances, things of this nature. So in this regard, the focus is making sure that the best foods are used and put into the body, and that we're not strictly eating for enjoyment or for comfort, but that we're also mindful of what we're putting in our bodies, and that it also can be used as medicine, as a healing tool, not just simply eating to be eating, but putting the best foods possible into our bodies. We know that we focus on making sure that we are in check, or our emotions are in check, or that we are in, we have in the forefronts of our minds what we are feeling and why, how we look at ourselves, what our self-esteem, our self-value, our self-worth is, how we interact with others, whether or not we are happy, or what our general disposition is, and knowing that all of that has an impact on how we are physically. And then we also holistically would make sure that spiritually we are in balance, that we know that there is a greater power. We know that we have to have good character. We know that we have to be a good, sound person with integrity, so that all of the positive spiritual energies are aligned with our ability to live a full and fulfilling life. And there are things that can be done to address that, whether it's prayer, whether it's meditation, whether it's fasting, whether it's using herbs to spiritually cleanse or to spiritually uplift when there's some sort of negativity or something that's sort of keeping someone bound and unable to thrive. So we address all of these things when we're talking about holistic healing and holistic wellness. And in holistic healing, let me refer to my handout myself, right? If you have the opportunity to look at your handout, but even if not, what I want to share is just some of the concepts behind holistic healing, because there's an impact on our health based on our nutrition, our physical activity, exercise, our energy levels are affected, having balance, having peace, praying, meditating, balancing the emotions. All of these things are involved. Vitamins, minerals, all of these things are involved when we're talking about holistic health. And so there are several definitions of holistic healing. And let me just provide one here. Holistic medicine is a form of healing that considers the whole person, body, mind, spirit, and emotions in the quest for optimal health and wellness. That's one definition. Holistic wellness is an approach to being healthy that looks at a person's health in a holistic way, a holistic way. This considers their body, mind, spirit. Attention to all three is needed to stay balanced. Holistic medicine believes that each of these things work together in tandem. A holistic approach means to provide support that looks at the whole person, not just their mental health needs. The support should also consider their physical, emotional, social, and spiritual well-being. So these are just various definitions of what holistic healing is. And there are different holistic principles. And I kind of gave a few, but just so you have sort of the the backdrop, the underlining basis of what holistic healing is. Optimal health. Primary goal for holistic medicine or holistic healing is a conscious pursuit of the highest level of functioning and balance of the physical, environmental, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual aspects of human experience. The healing power of love is the second one. Holistic healthcare practitioners are going to always strive to meet the client with grace, kindness, acceptance, spirit, without condition. So it's an unconditional type of thing, a non-judgmental type of thing in terms of providing healing. 3, you consider the whole person. And I think I've said that several times already. 4, prevention and treatment. So holistic healthcare focuses on promoting health, preventing illness, and helping raise awareness of ways to avoid disease rather than merely managing symptoms. So I think I spoke about that as well. 5, an innate healing power. All people have an innate, it's already in you, power of healing in their bodies, minds, and spirits. Holistic healthcare practitioners simply evoke and help clients utilize these powers to affect their healing process, right? 6 is integration of healing systems. So this is pretty much embracing a life of learning about all the various ways to heal the body. Pretty much meeting whatever the needs of the client or the individual is. And it may include lifestyle modification. I think I was muted. I think you can hear me now. But basically integrating a number of the healing systems that are involved in holistic healing. A relationship-centered care. Basically, the practitioner and client develop a relationship, and basically this allows each to help the other. The quality of this relationship is essential so that that healing process can continue. Individuality, everybody is different. You can't use a cookie cutter kind of approach. Everyone is different. And it's up to the healer to find whatever unique needs and whatever healing modalities will deal with that person individually. Teaching by example. Holistic healthcare practitioners continually work to provide personal incorporation of their holistic health principles and experiences to assist people with healing. And then lastly, learning opportunities. All life experiences, including birth, joy, suffering, the dying process even, all of these are profound learning opportunities for both clients or individuals and the healthcare practitioner. So all of these are sort of basic holistic healing principles. And all of these are necessary. And unless you have a practitioner that is addressing you in all of these levels, you're not really receiving a holistic healing service. There are different modalities within natural healing or holistic healing. We've mentioned herbs, so herbal medicine or herbology. Homeopathic medicine or homeopathy is another. Reflexology is one. That's a therapeutic foot massage where different reflex points or reflex zones that are on the hands and feet are used to promote healing throughout the entire body, just through the nerve endings in the hands and feet. There's also Reiki, which is an energy type of healing that kind of balances the energies to assist in the healing process. There's many other touch therapies, massage, shiatsu, acupressure. There's acupuncture, which uses needles to stimulate different acupressure points throughout the body to create a flow in the chi or energy in the body that assists in healing. The use of herbs and vitamins for internal use to heal the body. Conscious breathing, using the breath to heal the body, regulating how you're breathing and when, really exercising that lung muscle. That's one form of healing. Color therapy. There are some therapists or healers who use the various colors to promote healing. Some will promote various emotions or evoke various emotions, and that can be used for healing. So there are many. Crystal healing, you know, I personally collect crystals. I love crystals. And I know that each natural occurring mineral substance that was made into what just appears as a rock, we know that it has various energies from God, you know, through the earth and its growth and formation on the earth that is used in healing as well. They will balance emotions. They will protect you from all of the radioactivity in different electrical devices or electromagnetic field protection, breaking up negative energy, cleansing different areas. So crystals can be very healing. So there are many modalities in what we consider holistic healing or natural healing or what have you. Chiropractic is another one. Chiropractic is becoming more, I won't say, well, maybe popular is the right word, but when they first started, you know, Western medicine didn't always give it respect or what have you, or think that, you know, balancing or aligning the spine and all, you know, of its vertebrae and all of the nerve endings that lead into the spine and how that affects the entire body and different manipulations to, you know, to adjust that. When they first started, there was an overall belief that that wasn't credible or worthwhile healing modality, but it's become much more popular and well known and well used. So that's also considered a holistic treatment or modality as well. So these are just things I want to at least expose you to so that you know. Some things you never heard of. There's music therapy. So definitely different sounds, can evoke certain healing processes. People who use sound bowls or bells or even drums or different sounds can radiate and resonate with individuals and create a particular type of healing. So this is just sort of a overall, really quick overview of what holistic healing is and what are some of the principles and some of the natural healing modalities. But again, the goal is to empower you. And so if you hear nothing else, what I want you to get in terms of a very fundamental principle for holistic healing is that you are responsible for your own health and well-being. And you do have the power to actively participate and have an active role in that healing process, okay? And so hopefully the intent, of course, of this class is to provide you the information for you to do that. So even if you feel ill-equipped at this moment, by these 6 weeks, you will definitely have a better understanding. I think you'll get a good understanding of what we can do to empower ourselves and what we can do to stay healthy and how we can use our own personal power to evoke healing. So let's talk a little bit about herbs specifically. I would consider myself an herbalist first. And that was my first love. That's how I first got into this whole natural healing field. And I know I kind of just cut off earlier saying as to who I am or what have you, but I started learning about herbs sort of on my own in about 1992, when I was still in college, and formally took up study in about 1997. And, was elated to find out that there was such a program that would teach me all about herbs and about nutrition and anatomy and all of these things, and that there was actually a program that I could take from afar. They called it, I think, correspondence then. And that too was looked at unfavorably, right? But having gone to a traditional university, a couple of them, it was definitely different for me as well. So I also was like, I'm not really going to learn something with them sending me stuff or watching videos and, interacting with people, through phone or email or things like that. But I was sent like 70 herbs and I had to taste them, make products with them, send them back, get tested on them, what they smelled like, what they tasted like, what it was used for, how did it mix with other herbs and all of that. And I was like, wow, this is really much more thorough, right, than I thought it could possibly be, not being in a traditional university setting at that time. But now, advanced, that's been many years ago now, right? Couple of decades, but now here we are, we're learning stuff virtually, and that's sort of the way of the world. But even prior to COVID, online became more popular, and and they changed the name from correspondence to online or virtual and all of that, and now this is acceptable, an acceptable way of learning, and I'm glad we're there. But back when I first started, it wasn't, and they were like, naysayers were sort of like, how is this legit? How are you really learning? But believe me, you will and can learn even in this setting, even if you don't have herbs in front of you and you do not, have the ability to make, various concoctions or preparations with herbs. You can still know and have the understanding of these set plants that will do a number of different things. You'll have that knowledge. And when you are then able to access different things or whatever is local to you in whatever area you're in, you'll kind of have the basic understanding of what parts of plants are used for healing and different ways in which to use them. And we know, if you don't know anyone else that does this type of thing, your traditional healer, your traditional priest, or I know in Ghana, I don't know about other countries on the continent that say this fetish priest thing, which I hate, because it just sort of trivializes the priest part to me, right? But whatever you may call it in whatever part of the world you're in, but your traditional healer, your priest, your root doctor, your witch doctor, your whatever phrase you may use, I hope you will not have a negative connotation with it, but that you will understand that these are our traditional healers that know how to use and work and heal with what God has given us. And that's all of these probably millions of plants that are on the planet that were specifically designed to protect the Earth's inhabitants. And that's humans and animals. So, you know, we know that these natural herbs and plants are not only good for humans, but for, you know, the other creatures that reside here on Earth with us. And so I want you to have a more positive outlook on traditional healers or people who have for many, 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 many years worked with herbs and healed communities of people with herbs, with plants, with these natural occurring substances. Even if it appeared to be scary, or if they appear to be scary, you know that when it really came down to it and you had no other solution, right, that's where you went and you were healed. And negating the whole argument of those few that work for bad, you'll find in every tradition throughout this world, there are people who will work for bad under whatever religion or train of thought or system of thought or theology that they may claim to be under. You will find those people who work for bad. And we're not talking about those people, but I do highly encourage you to find a Sangoma, find an Akonfo, find an Iya or a Babalawo, or, you know, a Voodoo priest. And I'm sure there's even a traditional word for that I just don't know. But whatever part of the world that you're in, there are traditional healers that this is what they do. They work with herbs, they work with natural plants, and they know what the ins and outs are, and they know how to prepare, and they know what they are used and how they heal people. And so we'll get into how we traditionally have used various plants and herbs. So I want to take a second and go through, I see there are a lot of comments, and some were, I believe, just saying their goodbyes and showing their appreciation for Dr. Wright. But let me scroll through and see if there are others. Am I African American or Nigerian? I was born in America, but I am an African in America. At this point, I'm heavily involved in Ghanaian culture and the traditional Akua tradition of Ghana. And for any Ghanaians that's on the page, I go by Nana Akua, but a diasporan African doesn't always know all the proper pronunciations of things when we reclaim our African names. So I'm aware that it's Akua, and most of the dialects on Ghana, in the country of Ghana, I should say. But when I first got the name, I was told it was Akua, and that's what we've been with. But of course, if you refer to me as Akua, I will know that you know that that name is pronounced that way. Some people having some problems with their internet. Okay, I hope you can hear me now. Some people were saying they were having trouble hearing. I was muted, I think, mistakenly momentarily. So hopefully all of that's been cleared up. These messages were from a few minutes ago. Yeah, so, you know, I don't practice Vodun or Voodoo. However, I do practice a traditional African religion, and Vodun is one. And as I was previously mentioning, certainly there are certain traditional religions in particular, such as Voodoo, that often get a bad rap. So the question is, are Voodoo priests not dangerous to people? They're no more dangerous than, you know, anyone else that has ill intentions. So of course, if you get that particular Vodun priest that is working for bad or throwing black magic or black medicine, of course, but you will find in other traditions people that are just as treacherous or potentially dangerous. So I wouldn't just say, oh, all Voodoo is bad and all, you know, Voodoo priests work for bad. That's just not true. Yeah, so yeah, another question about Voodoo. So I'm not really getting into that. My only purpose for mentioning that actually, and I'm gonna stop sharing at this point. And the only reason for even mentioning Voodoo or Vodun was to simply say traditional priests are those who traditionally work with herbs. You would of course get good recommendation as to who you would go to for spiritual counsel or for healing from a spiritualist. And of course, you want someone that has a good record of not doing black magic or black medicine or, you know, working for bad. Definitely not my thing. My head deity is a witch catcher, you know, does not believe in black medicine or black magic. So you definitely have more of us that only work for the good and only work in the light and, you know, are not about any of that negativity. But we are taught to become very sharp and keen at working with herbs. So that was my only point in mentioning that, okay? So let's talk about herbs. I think actually, if I can share my screen again, I have another little handout here. So let's talk about herbalism. Herbalism is the study of plants used traditionally for the healing of one's mind, body, and spirit. The use of herbs for optimal healing and balance with nature, and plants and trees, tree parts that are created for healing of humans and animals through Almighty God's mercy and grace. So these were just sort of three sort of definitions that I kind of put together of what herbalism is. Okay, the parts of the plants that we use for healing, it may be the root, it may be the stem, it may be the bark, because not all are plants with flowers. Some of our healing plants or trees or shrubs that we use are actually trees that have bark and things on it that we would use for the healing, in addition to the leaves. And we also may use the whole flower. And that means, so not just the flower bud itself, but the essential oil from that flower or the essence from that flower. So we'll talk about that in coming weeks when we talk about essential oils and when we talk about flower essences, which are parts of the plant that are used to balance the emotions, okay? But so these are all the parts that we can use. And depending on what the plant is, depends on which is the most potent part, right? So if we are using aloe, then we know it's the leaves, or more so the nectar or the gel inside of those leaves of that plant that we mainly use for healing. If we are talking about neem, For example, we know that we are talking about the leaves of that we're primarily using for healing. If we're talking about something like dandelion that grows pretty wild here in America, right, then we know that it's the root, not the little flowery puffy part at the top that we're using for healing. So which part is used will depend on the plant itself, okay? Uses of herbs. We may use it in a compress, we may use it in a bolus, a poultice, an infusion. We may use it in aromatherapy. We may use the extract of it or a tincture. We may use the powder itself, or we may use it in a body powder. We may make it into a salve or an ointment, or we may make it in a liniment. And so there's various uses for herbs. And these are just some. So some are internally, some are topically, okay? And then the bottom here, and this is more so for someone who may, how do I scroll down? And this list I put together, which may not be so relevant to you all at this point, but I wanted to also, for anyone who is a budding herbalist and who wants to start making herbs, herbal products, these are just some of the things that you would want to have on hand. Depending on where you are, all of these herbs may not be available, but if you're able to order online, all of these are very easily accessed. But the first thing that you need is just a basic love and respect and appreciation for what God has given us naturally, without us requesting, and in most cases, without us even knowing how good it is for us. But having that love and respect and appreciation for what we naturally sort of have available to us, right? And then you want to have on hand what herbs you might want to make different products with. So I've listed some here. These are some of my favorite herbs, or I think most versatile herbs that you can have on hand to make different things for. Golden seal, nettle, echinacea, valerian, ginger, eucalyptus, comfrey, cayenne, lavender, things like that. Essential oils that you might want to have on hand: peppermint, lime, tea tree, clove, rosemary, ginger, cinnamon, thyme. These are just some of the possibilities. You wouldn't have to, as if you're new at this and just starting out, you certainly may not have any of these, and you may just get one by one or as time goes on. And then the other things are items that one would need if they are in fact making herbal products. If you're making a tincture or an extract, you might use pure grain alcohol, right? This is your, if you're a country girl like me from Virginia here in the States, you know, this would be like your moonshine, right? But you can easily buy grain alcohol also from the liquor store. If this is in Ghana, this would be your apetiche, right? But this is your pure grain, highest quantity or percentage of alcohol, without the other things added to make it, say, your brandy or your whiskey or your rum or your what have you, right? Just pure grain alcohol, the grain itself, whatever that alcohol has been made from. Then if you're making something like a liniment, you would have the isopropyl alcohol. This is the, and also in Ghana, a friend of mine sent me to get some spirit from the pharmacy. And I know somebody, I'm not seeing everybody right now, but somebody looked like they were working, a sister looked like she was maybe working in the pharmacy, looked like the backdrop. But she was calling it spirits. Now here in the US, we call spirits drink or alcohol. But she was asking for the rubbing alcohol, you know, so if you want to put on your skin, if you have an abrasion or a rash or something you're putting, or you're trying to clean your skin, the alcohol that you use topically is what we're talking about here. So in a liniment, where you might add other herbs and infuse it into this type of alcohol, you would apply it topically for any aches and pains you may have. Or you may have apple cider vinegar available. This is good for like detox vinegars if you're trying to cleanse your system. Apple cider vinegar itself has its own healing properties as well, but we use it in terms of making extractions with herbs. You can use it for flavored vinegars, for salads or sauces or things when you're cooking, but for healing purposes, we usually will use an infused vinegar to extract whatever essence of a particular herb that you're trying to get. And that vinegar combines with the innate healing power of that herb, but then kind of kicks it up a notch to enhance the effectiveness of it. Vegetable glycerin is usually used if you are trying to make a non-alcoholic tincture or extract with herbs. This would be something you would give to children or to someone who has an alcohol sensitivity, maybe someone that's in recovery from alcoholism, or someone that has a belief that they just don't want to consume any kind of alcohol in the body, that type of thing. You would have whatever oils, butters that you might want to make an ointment or a salve with, or a poultice with. And a poultice and a bolus are not maybe very familiar terms. So a bolus is pretty much an herbal concoction that you make with an oil or butter, where you're kind of, say you melt some shea butter or cocoa butter down, and you mix some ground up comfrey or chaparral or burdock root, and you kind of make it into a thick paste, and you kind of roll it and make it into sort of looks like maybe cookie dough or something like that, but with that consistency, but you sort of roll it into where it looks sort of like a pinky. These are things that you would insert either vaginally or rectally, depending on what you're trying to draw from, but you're using it to draw from a particular cavity of the body for its healing or cleansing purposes. That is what a bolus is. A poultice is a similar concept where you can use an oil or a butter, or it could be water, or it could be something like the apple cider vinegar or the vegetable glycerin that you would mix with something that is healing to the skin, like red clover, or arnica, or golden seal. And you make it into sort of a paste, but a thinner paste. A paste, not more so like a doughy type of thing. And it's to where you then can apply it topically to the skin, and you allow it to sort of sit there and draw out whatever toxins, if you're trying to use it as a drawing poultice to get rid of an abscess or a boil or something like that. That's what a poultice is. So the other things on the list are other just basic things that one would have if they were making products: measuring cups, funnels, strainers, things of that nature, okay? And so I wanted to share that with you. And when we're talking about what is herbalism, how do we use it, what do we need to have when using it, that's more so the purpose there, is so that you kind of know what to have on hand if you're really considering doing some healing work with herbs. I think I had one more message here. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I agree. So yeah, the comment was speaking to, availability and the safety, and that this is the way to go. And definitely, I wholeheartedly agree. You definitely stand to be safer, using natural occurring substances than a lot of the man-made chemical, made medicines. And it's not to say that all herbs are safe and all herbs can just be freely used. Of course, you have to kind of take the information that you'll be given, and you have to really use caution. What I have found, though, in my years of experience is most times the precautionary notes are more so about, okay, somebody else sharing their screen there. I don't know if, so I think Yvonne is gone. So Alex, you may need to restrict the sharing of the screen. I think I'm finished with sharing the screen right now. And we only have a few more minutes left anyway, so I'm done. So yeah, thanks. So usually the precautions are if you are taking sort of pharmaceutical drugs and having to, I guess, be aware or cautious of whether a particular herb will interact with whatever pharmaceutical drug that you may be taking. But yes, definitely consult someone who is trained as an herbalist, who really knows before you undergo some serious, regimen of something that you're doing for a long term. But by and large, herbs are very safe. They're foods. And I think all over the world, there's been, sort of the pharmaceutical companies and sort of big industry that's been trying to regulate it, but are having difficulty because herbs are food. And, it's not something that you can really regulate in the same way that you would some kind of prescription, drug, though they're trying. So use, precaution, use ones that are easily accessible, or at least there is research that you can do and find out about it. Something that you've sort of never heard or cannot get any information on is usually going to be the things that you maybe would want to dive into a little more cautiously and get specific, guidance from a healer on it. Okay. Allergies. That's not a simple answer. So it depends on what kind of allergy. Someone's asking how to treat allergies. In my experience, allergies could be of a particular thing, or it could be an environmental thing in terms of I have allergies from pollen in the air or that sort of thing. So generally here we consider that, like this is allergy season when the seasons are changing, and even how our seasons look are different than on the continent, of course. But if you're talking about that kind of allergies, then definitely things like the herb nettle is excellent for. And I personally use this for allergies. Things like mullein. There's a vitamin called quercetin. And then there is a natural antibiotic called colloidal silver. These are things that are great for and have been traditionally used for allergies. If someone is allergic to a particular condition, there are definitely homeopathic remedies that are great for addressing those. So even people who may have had allergies to dust or to ragweed or bee stings or, any number of things, dairy or wheat or what have you, there may even be other remedies that could be used for that. So it just depends on the nature of the allergies. And as we go more, because we'll talk more about herbs, so there's certainly more time to get into what herbs are used for what. I'm just sort of giving sort of that introduction for now. So someone also had asked me about scars. Scarring, there's an herb called comfrey that's really good. There's green clay. I don't know if you can access green clay. Some cosmetic companies call it French green clay, but green clay and comfrey and red clover, I've had a lot of success with. I make a clay mixture, pretty much equal parts of the herbs. So if I have a half a cup of comfrey and a half a cup of red clover, then I'll mix that with 1 cup of green clay. And then I'll take out a bit in a bowl or even in my hand, add a little water to it, mix it up, make it into a paste, apply it to whatever part of the body you're talking about, scarring or rashes or different things. That's excellent for. If you get into making products, you might make an ointment with comfrey in it, maybe comfrey and golden seal and echinacea. Echinacea increases your white blood cells in the skin, and it helps increase healing. So that's whether you've gotten a cut or whether you've gotten a bite from an insect or something. Echinacea helps to increase that healing time. So all of these things can help with scarring. I know that was a question from earlier. Yeah, and you're very welcome, Elijah. And we'll talk more about that as well. I'm not seeing my clock on here. Okay, so we got a couple more minutes. So I don't know if there are any other questions, but just per the syllabus, just know that we will, and if you can enable me again, I'm sorry, Alex, forgive me. I need to even refer myself to the, maybe not, I think you all will still see me if I go and look at it myself for a second. Because I wanted to just say what we would talk about next week. Okay, so yeah, so next week we will actually go deeper into the conversation about herbs. So we'll hear, and you'll see if you have the opportunity to pull up, or I don't know if you can print out, but if you're able to reference the handouts, we will specifically talk about some different herbs. There's one handout that talks about different herbs and what they do. And of course, this again will be an overview, but there are in your handout, it's about 2 pages worth of herbs. And then another handout that gives some very detailed uses of certain herbs, some of my favorite herbs. And then we'll talk about a very healing, potent combination of herbs that's been used for treating cancer and diabetes and HIV and a number of really serious chronic conditions. So that is what we will talk about for next week. I may have some additional handouts that I will post for you to review. Hopefully everyone is in the WhatsApp group. I think some people earlier asked the question to the moderator of adding yourselves to the group. Feel free to do that. That is required, and there are some protocols in order, for you to do that. Okay. So if you can follow that protocol and be in the group, you'll certainly get whatever handouts that are posted there. My apologies. I was reading, I do think I can multitask, but I'm not always good at it. So, tamarind. Wait, yeah, I'm familiar with tamarind. And most culinary herbs that we might even use in foods and for flavoring also are very good for the digestive system. So if you kind of go through the list of different, herbs that we usually cook with, they usually will aid in digestion as well. Usually herbs that kind of increase the blood flow and the oxygen to the brain are good for memory. So you're talking about things like gutta cola or ginkgo biloba. These are herbs that are good for memory. Okay, rainy season. Ugh, I hate rainy season in Ghana. Okay, somebody has rainy season and they had to go. And yeah, and not everything, I guess, that we can access here is accessible all over the world. I did refer someone to a company. It is on Amazon, so I don't know, just from my experience, not everything that is visible here on this side is visible and accessible there, because some, I guess, distributors or places that Amazon uses maybe don't ship outside of the US. So I don't know that I would know how to get around that. other than maybe going to the shipper directly. So actually, let me send that privately. Yeah, you did ask me that privately. That's great. So any other questions? Thank you for everyone who cut their cameras on and who indulged me. I appreciate it. Again, I will post some handouts, and sometimes the things that I post in the group, because we're pretty much going by the handouts with it, and they come in 3 parts. But if I find additional things that are related to whatever topic we may have for that week, it'll be just additional information for you to sort of add. Or it may be something that's just more visual and gives more of a picture demonstration of what we're talking about. So some of the things that I'll post in the group are like that. But generally, that 3-part is called Healing 1, Healing 1A, and Healing 2. That is the packet or the materials that we will use for the class, okay? And so be sure to try to have that on hand. And then anything additional that I usually will post will be just kind of refresher things or additional information on that topic for that week. And if you have any questions, feel free to post questions in the WhatsApp group. And I'll be sure to get to those, as best possible. But other than that, if there are no other questions, we're at 12:42. I won't guarantee that I'll always be so good with the time, but but I'm doing good today, and we can keep with the time. But yes, if no one else has any other questions, thank you for joining us. Thank you for supporting and being a part of I Love Black People. And as always, I always bid you good health and peace.
All right, thank you.
Oh, okay, Yvonne's back. All right, thanks, sis. I'll see you next week.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye-bye. Oh, there's one more in the chat. Amazing, thank you. All right, peace, everybody.